Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, this is Ahmed Abdul Muazz, a plastic surgeon and the founder of Plastic Surgery B Project. Today we'll have a short and nice presentation about the relationship between earlobes and plastic surgery. So, first of all, recapping the embryology or the development of the earlobe. It all starts from the center section of the architrons roof, and the architrone, by the way, is the upper end of the embryological origin of the human GIT. So it all starts there by the center section of the architrons roof that stimulates the production of the medulla oblongata which is the first level creator, and the medulla oblongata, which induces the production of a pair of auricular follicles derived from the mesoderm, is the second level creator, and finally the auricular follicle which induces the production of the auditory bola is the third level creator. Speaking about the structure of the earlobe, we can find that the human earlobe, or the lobulus auriculi, is composed of tough areolar and the adipose connective tissue, and the earlobe does not contain cartilage. Looking at the functions of the earlobe, so it has a large blood supply and may help warm the ears. At the same time, it can maintain balance. It is an erogenous zone, so it has a physiological function related to the sexual arousal. It has also a cultural significance, so you can join some kind of group or a cult, or you can easily be spotted that you belong to a certain culture, a certain country, like the original people of Ethiopia, that they have this kind of different and distinguished ear piercing. So and finally, it has a clinical significance. So the human earlobe, or the lobulus auriculi, they have found that there's a clinical significance. So they have found out that there's a relationship between the deformity or the deformation of the earlobe and few syndromes like the Beckwith vitamin syndrome, chronic cardiac diseases, the Frank sign. You can see that when there's a crease on the earlobe, so they have linked that with the chronic cardiac diseases. They have also linked deformities of the earlobe with the Down syndrome, the Turner syndrome, and there was an interesting paper or research that could link the early earlobe piercings with nickel and other metals, and a more probability of immunological reaction to like dental implants and others. So it has an impact on the human immunity. About the variations of the earlobe, so we can find that there's a free versus attached earlobe. So a free earlobe is the dominant, and the attached earlobe is the recessive one. And as we can see, that Clint Eastwood is the most famous human being having attached earlobe, according to one magazine. So looking at relevant anatomy, like the most important blood vessels related to the earlobe is actually the superficial temporal artery, which passes just anterior to the earlobe and feeds it. At the same time, speaking about the nerve cutaneous, sensory blood supply, nerve supply of the earlobe, so it is the great auricular nerve, as we can see in the green zone, number 1. So as about the surgical significance, so we will discuss how to manage the defects of the earlobe, the long and wide openings, and can earlobe be a donor site, and other subjects. So there was a paper published, and it was maybe the only one that could classify the injuries of the earlobe and make an algorithm for managing them. So they have classified into type 1 and type 2, A and B, and type 3. So type 1, when there's just a split in the earlobe defect without any actual loss. Type 2A, when there's a loss of the earlobe with no cutaneous remnant attached to the cheek. And number B, 2B is loss of the earlobe with cutaneous remnant attached to the cheek. And number 3, there is a loss of the earlobe extending to the upper 2/3 of the auricle. So this paper was titled Algorithm based on 18 patients with acquired traumatic earlobe defects not associated with jewelry, and it was written by Muhabtra and others in 2013. And as we can see in this algorithm, so they have defined a certain management for each type of the defect. So speaking about the split earlobe, or just the cut in the earlobe without any losses, so there are too many methods to discuss here. There was even one paper speaking about 21 different methods. So there are too many, and whenever you search, you'll find more and more methods. And so I thought it's too boring to discuss here. Also, there was another paper speaking about the long and the big and the wide defects on the earlobe, especially after wearing a heavy earring or a gauge earring, for example, as we can see in the photo. So this way was titled Double Opposing Perpendicular Linear Repair of the Gauge Ear Piercing Deformity, a New Technique in Literature Review, written by Zuderman and others. And only one paper, this paper, could discuss 8 different methods of repairing the long and big defects, splits in the earlobe. Speaking about the real stuff, the real business, how to really reconstruct a real defect on the earlobe. So speaking about those techniques, that are most 5 famous techniques: the Gavillos technique, the Dukes technique, the Alanis technique, the Weird-Ass technique, and the Gupta's technique. So speaking about the Gavillos technique, it's actually a bilobed flap, as you can see, anteriorly based. Flap 1 and 2, they are equal in size, and after doing your surgery, you close the donor site in a horizontal line. Speaking about the Dukes technique, so actually they are anterior and posterior flap, like preauricular and postauricular flaps, and actually they are small in size and they are used to close smaller defects in the earlobe. Speaking about the Alanis technique, it looks like Gavillos technique, with only one difference, that Alanis thought that the posterior flap should be smaller than the anterior flap. So it is a bilobed, anteriorly based, and your donor site will be closed in a horizontal line. Everything is like Gavillos flap, but the only difference is that the anterior flap is a little bigger than the posterior flap. Talking about the Weird-Ass technique, which we use in type 3 earlobe losses, which is combined with the loss of the helix. So actually, we take a post-auricular flap, a bigger flap, of course, in size as we can see in the photo, and we wrap it around a cartilage framework. Last not the least, the Gupta's technique, which is genius in my mind. So it looks like a U-shaped design, and as we can see, there's a central zone in the flap marked by C letter. This, we deepithelialize this zone and we stick it to the fresh edge of the amputated or the lost earlobe. Then we wrap type part 1 and part 2 of the flap together, forming the anterior and the posterior aspects of the new earlobe in order. And by the way, the case on the bottom of the slide is my case I did a few days ago. So have you heard about earlobe flap? Earlobe, I mean fillers. So this new craze, I've heard about it this year, just this year, 2019, for whoever is listening to us in the future. And they have found out that the fillers would be a nice idea if you have a mildly big piercing hole on your earlobe, so it will treat that easily. And at the same time, they have found a relationship or like a link between the looks of atrophic, small, creased earlobe and the aging. So when you inject your earlobe, make it bigger, more plumpy, thicker, so it gives you a youthful look, according to them, of course. So as some people want to enlarge or augment the earlobes, so there's another surgery for people with earlobe hypertrophies called the earlobe reduction, as we can see. So there are endless methods, of course, but these are just 2 examples of the earlobe reduction, as we can see on that slide. I thought that it would be significant to mention the earlobe transposition, the microtia, for people who are interested or specialize in that kind of surgery. So speaking about earlobe, we couldn't miss that, of course. Ending that presentation, we should tell you this piece of very important information. So the Vincent van Gogh cut off his own ear was a myth, and the reality was he only cut off the tip of his earlobe. Thank you so much for listening. Watch us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, email us with what you think. If you have any comments, any feedback, any corrections, we are open, of course, for any comments. And if you have any suggestion about our next subject, we are waiting for your feedback. Apes de